On a cold December day in 1901, in the Berlin district of Schöneberg, Maria Magdalena Dietrich was new. Her father served as a police lieutenant, while her mother came from a wealthy family that owned a jewelry and watch firm on Unter den Linden. The family lived comfortably, surrounded by an atmosphere of order and Prussian discipline. Maria's childhood was marked by strictness. Her mother, Josephine, was a woman of iron principles and firm character. She raised her daughters according to all the rules of high society at that time. From an early age, the girls studied French and English with private tutors. Governesses taught them proper manners and literary German. When Maria turned 6, her world was turned upside down. Her father died from illness, leaving the family without its head. Her mother soon remarried a family friend, a military man named Eduard von Loesch. But fate was cruel. In 1916, during World War I, her stepfather died from wounds sustained on the Eastern Front. The war brought devastation and uncertainty into the family's life. Josephine decided to take her daughters away from Berlin. They settled in Dessau, where the girls continued their education. Maria became passionate about music with particular fervor. She learned to play the piano, then the lute, and then stubbornly took up the violin. Around age 11, the girl invented a new name for herself. She combined Maria and Magdalena, creating the resonant and memorable Marlene. And so the name was born that would soon be known around the world. At her girls' school, Marlene behaved quietly and inconspicuously. Friends remembered her as a little gray mouse. But something special was already ripening in the young woman's soul. She dreamed of the stage, admired the film star Henny Porten, and fell in love with her French teacher, Mademoiselle Bregon. After the war, Josephine sent her daughter to Weimar to continue her musical education. Marlene took private violin lessons from Professor Robert Reitz. The young woman dreamed of becoming a concert violinist. In 1917, she performed publicly for the first time at a Red Cross concert, playing dressed in a boy's costume. But the dream was not meant to be. Marlene injured her finger, which put an end to her career as a violinist. Disappointed, she returned to Berlin. The city was teeming with post-war life, full of poverty and at the same time, creative uplift. In 1922, Marlene tried to enroll in Max Reinhardt's acting school at the German Theater. She failed her first audition. But the school's director, Berthold Held, saw potential in her and agreed to give her private lessons. The young actress began working her way up through small roles in theaters and cabarets. She worked in the chorus line, sang in cabarets, took odd jobs wherever she could. In 1924, Marlene married assistant director Rudolf Sieber. In December of that same year, their daughter Maria was born. The following years passed in intense work. Marlene appeared in bit parts in silent films, acted in theaters, performed in revues. In 1928, she made her first record, but real success still eluded her. Everything changed in 1929. American director Josef von Sternberg was looking for an actress for the lead role in a film based on Heinrich Mann's novel. He saw Marlene in a Berlin review. The director later welcomed that he couldn't take his eyes off this woman. He invited her to play the cabaret singer Lola Lola in the film The Blue Angel. Sternberg saw something special in this ordinary Berlin girl. He began molding her into the image of a femme fatale. Marlene lost weight, changed the way she moved, learned a special look from under half-lowered eyelids. The director worked with her like a sculptor with clay. The premiere of The Blue Angel took place on March 31, 1930. The film had the effect of an exploding bomb. Marlene Dietrich woke up famous. Her low, velvety voice singing "Falling in Love Again" drove audiences wild around the world. In February 1930, she signed a contract with the Hollywood studio Paramount for $1,750 a week. On the day of The Blue Angels premiere, Marlene left Berlin and headed to America. She left her husband and daughter behind, rushing toward her dream. In Hollywood, Sternberg continued creating the Dietrich image. Together, they made 6 films, each of which became an event. In her first American film, Morocco, Marlene appeared on screen in a men's tuxedo and kissed a woman. It was both scandal and triumph. Dietrich became the sex symbol of the era. Her androgynous beauty, provocative sexuality, and mysterious aloofness created an entirely new feminine image. She wore pants when it was considered improper. She smoked and flirted with both men and women. She was the embodiment of freedom. The films followed one after another. Dishonored, where she played a spy. Shanghai Express, which became the most commercially successful of their collaborations. Blonde Venus, The Scarlet Empress, The Devil is a Woman. Each role added new dimensions to the image of Marlene Dietrich. But by the end of the 30s, the situation had changed. In 1938, independent theater owners labeled Dietrich box office poison. Her popularity was declining. Then, she accepted an offer to star in a Western. The film was successful and restored some of her former glory. Meanwhile, in Germany, the Nazis had come to power. Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, repeatedly offered Marlene the chance to return to her homeland. He promised her 200,000 Reichsmarks per film. She could choose her own directors and subjects. Marlene could have become the main star of the Third Reich. But she refused. Each time, categorically and finally. In 1937, Dietrich applied for American citizenship. In 1939, she officially became a citizen of the United States. For her, this was a confident choice of sides in the approaching war. On December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States entered World War II. Marlene Dietrich immediately decided to act. She became one of the first Hollywood stars to begin selling war bonds. From January 1942 to September 1943, she toured the United States. Marlene performed before soldiers on the Pacific Coast, before workers at war factories. She claimed to have sold more bonds than any other celebrity. But this wasn't enough for her. Marlene wanted to be closer to the front, closer to the real war. In March 1943, she interrupted her acting career and joined the United Service Organizations. This was an organization that sent entertainers and musicians to perform for the troops. But Dietrich was different from other stars. She didn't want to perform in the safe rear. She was desperate to get to the front lines, where cannons roared and people were dying. Her first tour began in 1944. Marlene went to North Africa. There, she sang for soldiers in tents and under open skies. She didn't separate herself from ordinary soldiers. She talked with them, signed autographs, posed for photos. The servicemen worshipped her. Then came Italy. Marlene performed before tens of thousands of soldiers. This was her first experience with solo concerts on a large stage. She sang, told stories, joked. Her concerts lasted for hours. The soldiers didn't want to let her go. From Italy, she moved to England, which was preparing for the Normandy landings. And after the invasion, Marlene went to France. She followed the advancing troops, performing literally just a few kilometers from the front lines. The conditions were extremely harsh. Cold, mud, constant danger. Marlene was often sick, suffered from frostbite, but she continued. She slept in tents, ate soldiers' rations, wore military uniform. Her only concession to stardom was her concert dresses. In Paris, just liberated from the Germans, Marlene searched for her lover, French actor Jean Gabin. He was fighting with the French forces. One evening, She begged a sergeant to give her a jeep and drove off to search for him in the darkness between the tanks. Then the troops moved into Germany. Marlene entered the land of her birth alongside Generals Patton and Gavin. For her, this was a strange and painful feeling. She was returning home with an army that brought death and destruction to German cities. But concerts for the troops were only the visible part of Marlene Dietrich's activities. Behind the scenes, a completely different story was unfolding, a story whose details remain classified to this day. The United States Office of Strategic Services was waging psychological warfare against the Third Reich. In the early 40s, radio became a powerful weapon. By 1941, 2/3 of German households had their own radio receivers. American intelligence decided to exploit this. The Psychological Operations Division was created. Its goal was to undermine the morale of German and Italian soldiers. By 1943, the Americans had established constant broadcasting of radio stations in German and Italian specifically for enemy military personnel. For this purpose, a project was developed under the code name MUSAC. Intelligence personnel secretly recruited the best writers, musicians, and performers from Hollywood. They recorded new compositions and old popular melodies in high quality. The radio station was called Soldatensender, Soldiers' Radio. It broadcast in German and quickly became the most popular station among servicemen of the Reich. German soldiers listened to it in trenches and bunkers, in tanks and hospitals. They didn't know the station was controlled by American intelligence. Marlene Dietrich became a key figure in Project MUSAC. Moreover, she was the only one of all the participants who knew she was taking part in an American intelligence operation. The other artists thought they were simply recording songs for the troops. The central composition was the song Lili Marleen. This was an old German song about a soldier dreaming of returning to his beloved. The song was sad, melancholic, saturated with homesickness. The propaganda ministry of the Third Reich had even banned its performance, calling it defeatist and depressing. That's precisely why American intelligence paid special attention to it. Dietrich recorded several versions of Lili Marleen in German. Her low, velvety voice gave the song a special longing and sadness. The song played on soldiers' radio over and over again. Former Office of Strategic Services agent Elizabeth McIntosh later spoke about Marlene's role. The songs she performed were filled with subtext. They were meant to arouse disgust for the war in German soldiers, a desire to surrender. They were designed to overwhelm soldiers with longing, to deprive them of the will to fight. Marlene recorded other compositions as well, songs about home, about peaceful life, about love. Her voice penetrated the souls of German soldiers, reminding them of what they had lost, of the families they had left behind, of the life they could have lived. In addition, Dietrich recorded anti-Nazi messages in German. These recordings were broadcast by radio to occupied territories. She spoke to German soldiers in their native language, calling on them to come to their senses, lay down their arms, stop the senseless war. The effectiveness of this operation is difficult to assess precisely, but there is evidence that Dietrich's songs really did affect the morale of German troops. Some soldiers, after listening to Lili Marleen, decided to surrender. Marlene paid a high price for her position. In Germany, she was declared a traitor. Her name was banned. Nazi propaganda branded her as a turncoat who had sold out to the Americans and Jews. Her sister Elizabeth remained in Germany. Together with her husband, they opened a cinema with a cafe for concentration camp workers. When Marlene learned about this after the war, she stopped considering Elizabeth her sister. They never communicated again. Many of her relatives and friends turned away from her. For some, she was a traitor to the homeland. For others, a symbol that not all Germans supported Hitler. Marlene found herself caught between two fires, accepted by neither side. Physically, the war also took its toll. Performing on the front lines in the harshest conditions undermined her health. She suffered from frostbite and was constantly ill. Doctors forbade her to continue, but Marlene didn't listen to them. There were also moments of real danger. Once, she narrowly avoided capture by her distant relative, SS Division Commander Sepp Dietrich. His unit was located near the site of Marlene's performance. Only quick evacuation saved her from possible arrest or even execution. But Dietrich didn't stop. She considered it her duty. Later, she said that performing at the front was the only important thing she had ever done in her life. Everything else, films, fame, money, seemed insignificant to her compared to this. The war ended in May 1945. Germany lay in ruins. Millions of people had died. The world had changed forever. And Marlene Dietrich had changed too. For her contribution to victory, she received the highest honors. President Harry Truman presented her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the highest awards a civilian can receive in the United States. The citation read, "For outstanding contribution to raising troop morale overseas during the war." France awarded her the Officer of the Legion of Honor and the Knight of the Legion of Honor. The French remembered how she had performed before their troops, how she had entered liberated Paris. Marlene later said that this was the achievement she was most proud of in her life. Not an Oscar, not world fame, not millions of fans, but these military honors. Recognition that she had made the right choice in the most difficult time. After the war, Marlene returned to her acting career. In 1948, she starred in Billy Wilder's film A Foreign Affair. Many critics consider this role her best after she stopped working with Sternberg. But cinema was no longer the main thing in her life. In 1953, her new career as a singer and entertainer began in Las Vegas. She performed in cabarets in dresses that created the illusion of transparency. In the first part of the concert, she appeared in luxurious outfits. In the second, in a tailcoat and top hat, performing songs from the male repertoire. For the next 20 years, Marlene toured around the world. Paris, London, Las Vegas, Copenhagen, Jerusalem, Sydney, Buenos Aires. She sang in 3 languages. Her concerts packed houses. Sometimes she earned up to $50,000 per performance. In 1960, she took a risky step. Marlene returned to Germany on a concert tour. This was her first visit to her homeland since before the war. She didn't know how she would be received. The reception was contradictory. In Dusseldorf, a young woman spat in her face. During a performance, someone threw an egg at her. In Berlin, protesters chanted, "Marlene, go home." Many Germans still saw her as a traitor to the fatherland. But there were others. The mayor of West Berlin, Willy Brandt, who had himself survived the Nazi period in exile, warmly received her. Many Germans came to her concerts and wept. For them, she was a symbol that not all Germans had been Nazis, a symbol of resistance and courage. Her concert career continued until the mid-70s. Dietrich's health gradually deteriorated. Her joints and bones suffered, consequences of those difficult years at the front. Falls on stage began, injuries followed. In 1975, she gave her last concert. After that, Marlene moved to Paris and settled in an apartment on Avenue Montaigne. There she spent the last 17 years of her life, practically never leaving home. Marlene Dietrich became a recluse. She refused visitors, gave no interviews, wouldn't allow herself to be photographed. The world was changing, but she remained in the past, surrounded by memories of her glory days. Only rarely did she agree to audio interviews by phone. Her voice, which had once mesmerized millions, now sounded from a telephone receiver. In 1982, she agreed to record audio commentary for a documentary about her. The film was simply called Marlene, but she categorically refused to appear on camera. On May 6, 1992, Marlene Dietrich died in her Paris apartment. She was 90 years old. News of her death spread around the world. Newspapers published obituaries recalling her films, her songs, her legendary beauty. But the most touching thing was something else. Her coffin was draped with 3 flags: France, the United States, and Germany. 3 countries, 3 parts of her life. Germany, where she was born; America, which she chose; France, where she found her final resting place. She was buried in Berlin, in the Schöneberg district where she was born, next to her mother. The circle was complete. A girl from a Berlin family who became a Hollywood star and an American agent had returned home.